Hey guys, how's it going? So today we're doing a cooking video. The recipe is called Spicy Italian Drunken Noodles from a website called The Cozy Apron, and it's something that I've made a few times before and we've really enjoyed it. But the most exciting part about it is that 4 of the ingredients I have ready to go in my own garden that I get to harvest and take inside. So I've already got in my basket here some garden treasure tomatoes. I went out to the barn and grabbed a Walla Walla onion that I harvested out of my garden earlier on. Look at the good size of that. And a head of Italian garlic. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these garden gem tomatoes. They're both really good varieties of tomatoes. And then we need to go grab a little bit of basil. And this should be about the perfect amount of tomatoes here. And the basil is just right behind me. Now I've talked about this variety of basil quite a bit. This is called a mazel basil. This right here is one plant. They grow so huge. They're also downy mildew resistant, which is really awesome. But this is a variety I've grown a couple of years in a row and have really enjoyed it because the flavor maintains the same qualities even after the plant starts to bloom. So I just need a few stems of this because this will be our garnish at the end. So that's pretty much all I need for today's recipe out of the garden, so let's head inside. All right guys, to start I'm going to put a heavy bottomed pan on the burner, and then I'll turn the heat up to medium high and we'll add a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. While the oil is heating up, I'm going to prepare my Walla Walla onion by first peeling off the outer layer, then I'll slice it in half and then slice those halves into thinner pieces. Now that the oil is sufficiently hot, it's ready for the spicy Italian sausage. I'm just going to place the whole contents of the package in the pan and then start breaking it up into smaller pieces with my spoon. While that's cooking, I want to prepare my garlic and bell peppers. I grew Italian garlic, it's my favorite variety, and I'm going to use 4 cloves, which I will remove the peels from, and then press them through the garlic press, and it smells so good. Then for the peppers, I've got a red one, yellow, and orange, and I'll core them and cut them into thin slices. I do have bell peppers growing in the garden, but I'm bummed that I don't have any currently ripe enough to use in this recipe. It looks like the sausage is cooked up beautifully, so I'm going to remove it with my slotted spoon so that the oil remains in the pan, and then put the sausage in a bowl where it will sit for just a few minutes and we'll eventually add it back in. Now I'll grab the onions and add them into the pan I just cooked my sausage in, and look at the beautiful color they turn when I stir them around in the oil and sausage drippings. I'm going to leave them in this pan for about 5 minutes or so, and we'll stir them frequently so they don't burn until they become golden and caramelized. While the onions cook, I've got just about enough time to prep my tomatoes. I'm just going to chop them up into about 1/2-inch pieces or so. You can take the time to peel your tomatoes before you chop them if you want to, but I find that it actually doesn't make much of a difference to the end result. The recipe calls for a 28-ounce can of diced tomatoes with their juice for this part, but oh my word, it tastes so much better with tomatoes from the garden. Onions are done, so I'm going to add in my bell peppers, stirring them together, then my seasonings, which are 1½ teaspoons of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and I'll give them all a quick stir and let them cook for a couple of minutes together. Next up is the garlic. This is when the smell gets really good. I'm going to stir that in, and once it's really aromatic, I'm going to add in about a 1/2 cup of white wine. I used Chardonnay because that's what I had on hand. I'm going to stir it all together and let it simmer for a few minutes until the liquid has reduced quite a bit. Once it's reduced, it's time to add the tomatoes and the prepared sausage, stirring gently to combine everything, and next time I will definitely use a larger pan. It'll make this much easier. And once that has cooked together for about 3 to 4 minutes or so, I like to add a cornstarch slurry to the sauce to thicken it up. To make it, I add a very heaping teaspoon of cornstarch to a ramekin and pour in a little warm water and stir it until the cornstarch is completely dissolved. Then I pour that into my sauce and stir it in. It only takes a minute or two to see a huge difference, and this is something that I add that the recipe doesn't call for, but I find it helps the sauce stick to our noodles and it improves the consistency of our sauce overall. I also like to drizzle a little bit more olive oil to make the sauce silky. And that wraps it up for our sauce. I'm going to turn off the heat and prepare the noodles. To do that, I just fill a big pot full of hot water, place it on my burner, which I turn on high, toss in a generous pinch of salt, and then wait for it to start to boil. Once it has, I'm going to toss in about 12 ounces of pappardelle noodles, and I'm honestly not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. They're basically just white egg noodles. The recipe calls for 8 ounces, but that's not quite enough noodles for me. I like a little bit more, and I let them cook for about 10 minutes or until al dente. While the noodles cook, I'm going to prepare the garnishes. First off, I'm going to grab some of my fresh basil and julienne it. Then I chop up a little bit of parsley and grate some Parmesan cheese. Garnishes are prepped and the noodles are done, so I'm going to pour those noodles into a colander and let the water drain away. And once that's done and I rinse them with a little bit of water, which helps the noodles not stick together, I'm going to add them back to the pot I cooked them in. Then I'll place them back on the burner and pour our sauce right over the top. I'm going to use tongs to gently mix everything together, and now I can add them to my bowls and garnish them up using the Parmesan cheese, a generous amount of basil, and a little bit of that chopped parsley. It's such a pretty dish, don't you think? So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. It just makes me so excited when I'm able to use several things that I grew in my own garden to make a dish. I did tweak the original recipe a little bit more to our taste, so you'll notice if you do check out the recipe, we'll put the link down below, that I did things just a tiny bit different, but I've made this about 3 or 4 times now and we really enjoy it. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching and we will see you in the next video. Bye.